Welcome. Good morning, everyone. I know that getting on a Zoom call sometimes seems a little bit harder than driving to a meeting. So thank you for being here today and for joining us. My name is Melanie Scanlon. I'm Executive Director at Leadership Geauga. And Ben is one of our program alumni, and we were having a conversation, and he mentioned some of the great people who are on our panel today and thought this could be really great information that we share out in our community. So thank you for being here today. I hope you learn a little bit more about employing formerly incarcerated individuals. For me, I'm also interested in learning about and checking maybe some bias that I have. And so hopefully this helps you as both a leader and as an employer. I'll turn it over to you, Ben, to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Good morning and happy holidays. I'm Ben Calkins of the Calkins Law Firm, Center for Free Enterprise co-founder. A special thank you to our Center for Free Enterprise sponsors. In addition to the Calkins Law Firm, we have JP Morgan, represented by Ken Greeny and Greg Keegan. Eric Schwartz, who's helping us today with the Zooming, of the Cleveland Private Trust Company, has joined the Center for Free Enterprise as a sponsor and co-founder in the place of David Brown. Gold Key, represented by Wyndham Ratchford, is our video expert, but he's not videoing today. Spaceman, represented by Bradley Calkins, designed our new website. And Litkowski and Company, represented by Dale, David, Kim, and Carly Litkowski, is a new sponsor. Please thank and patronize our sponsors. Co-sponsors for today include Leadership Geauga, represented by Melanie Scanlon, and relink.org and the Dalton Foundation, represented by Barbara Campbell. A special thank you to our co-sponsors. It gives me great pleasure to introduce today's panelists. First, let me introduce Barbara Campbell, Executive Director of the Dalton Foundation and relink.org, and then Brandon Chrostowski, founder of Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute, Jill Rizika, Executive Director of Towards Employment, and Frank Whitfield, Mayor of Elyria, Ohio. At this point, I'm going to ask our panelists, starting with Barbara, and then Jill, if she's arrived, and then Frank, and finishing with Brandon, to say a few words about their experience in the area of employing formerly incarcerated individuals. Barbara?
Thanks, Ben, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. As Ben said, I am the Executive Director of the Dalton Foundation. The Dalton Foundation is a nonprofit located here in Northeast Ohio that focuses a lot of our giving on addiction recovery, the reentry community, and human trafficking. Related to reentry, we sponsor different programs within the prisons themselves to help individuals get ready for release. And then we also are very tightly partnered with the for-profit business Relink Medical that does hire both second chance employees with previous felonies, and then also we do programs directly with the prisons and hiring people right as they come out. Currently, the workforce there is 75% second chance employers, with 30% of those coming directly out of a prison with over 10 years of incarceration per person. Actually, most of the people that are coming out that we're hiring have over 20 years of incarceration. Right now on the Relink Medical staff, there's over about 125, right over 100 years of incarceration experience, I guess, on the staff. It's something that's really important to our founder, Mr. Ray Dalton, to support this community. I think we all truly believe that for a person to come out of prison, to be successful, they really need some meaningful employment, a place to go. When you think about being in prison, your days are structured all the time, and then you get out and there's a lot of freedom. The job provides not only financial means, but it also provides some structure and stability and comfort. And it's absolutely vital. So I know the leadership team at Relink Medical, the foundation is there to support as well, are really committed to seeing the employees succeed. they do that with some very accountable management. They have consistent management, clear expectations set up front. I was interviewing some of the actual supervisors that supervise everybody on a day in and day out basis, and was asking about, just the success. Some of these things I know, but just wanting to hear from them about, how many people over the years have you had to fire? They're right now, they're still at 100%. We have a great partner with True Freedom Ministries that helps work with individuals in prison and as they come out, and refer them to us. And while we've screened a few out in the interview process, once we've hired somebody, there has been so far 100% success. And this program's been going on for a while. So we're very proud of that. And it's definitely a program we are committed to growing and expanding.
Okay, perfect. Now, I don't know that we have Jill on, do we, Eric? I don't think so. No, so skipping over Brandon, because we'll come back to him, and skipping over Jill, we'll accommodate her when she arrives. Let's move on to Frank Whitfield, the mayor of Elyria.
Good morning. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Eric, for the invitation. My name is Frank Whitfield. I'm the mayor here in the city of Elyria. And I entered this is my first year in office, but I entered this work coming from the Lorain County Urban League, where I was the president and CEO, where we did a lot of work trying to help individuals with criminal backgrounds to find employment. And prior to that, I worked for the Nord Family Foundation, where I was privileged to be able to support a lot of the reentry work going on around the country, and got a chance to see some amazing examples, including the one in our backyard with Brandon and Edwin's. And so, my background personally, I come from the city of Elyria, and I guess you would say the predominantly African-American part of town and low-income part of town, where it is so easy to slip into a criminal background. I was, thinking about this earlier. My first time seeing serious drugs was on the school bus in 7th grade. And so, in so many urban communities, you get introduced to opportunities that could lead you on a path to establishing a criminal record. And then you're haunted by that dreaded question on the application: have you ever been convicted of a crime? And for so many people, that is the death sentence. That is the time where they walk away. That is the time where they just, wring their hands and say, here we go again. And my hope being in this seat is that, one, I can use my voice as a platform to really change the face of not only reentry, but individuals with any sort of criminal background. And then also to open up more opportunities, to use this platform to open up opportunities for folks. And maybe someday we'll get an Edwin's here in the city of Elyria as well. So thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Frank. Let's now proceed to the video, Eric, with regard to Brandon, to introduce Brandon.
Restaurateur who is gaining recognition not just for his food, but for who is serving it. Brandon Chrostowski received the Silver Plate Award this month, an honor he now shares with Wolfgang Puck, Danny Meyer, and others. But Chrostowski's operation is a little different. His kitchens are staffed by ex-cons, and he's made it his mission to give others the second chance in life he says he was granted years ago. We visited with him last summer.
Who's on burgers tonight, guys? I got it.
At Edwin's restaurant in Cleveland.
You can start rocking.
The only thing more important than turning out the finest food and wine is turning around the lives of its employees.
Order fire snails and barbecue. Did you already order? You already take a look and see what you...
Brandon Chrostowski is the man in charge.
Well, sit back, enjoy.
2 decades ago, he was a boy in trouble. You were dealing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
How old?
18.
What happened?
Well, we got caught up in a little thing, and police came. We all left.
You took off.
Took off.
Chrostowski found himself in front of a forgiving judge.
The charge that I carried was about 5 to 10 years in prison.
Why didn't he do that?
Well, I think there's 2 reasons: the color of my skin and the grace of God.
Given probation instead of hard time, Chrostowski caught on inside a kitchen in his hometown of Detroit, trained at the Culinary Institute of America, and was soon working at top French restaurants in Paris and New York. But the second chance he got was always in the back of his mind. So he came up with a plan. The goal is to have the best French restaurant in
The world?
the best French restaurant in the world in Cleveland.
Yeah, Ohio.
Why here?
I just looked at where the worst high school graduation rate was, and Cleveland, Ohio happened to be the #2 city in the country where people in high school didn't graduate. So I figured that's the place that it's needed.
You went to where you saw the situation being the worst and said, I'm going to make the best.
Yeah, makes sense. One turn like this, flip it, a whole turn like this.
Everyone who trains at Edwin's, short for Education Wins, has had some sort of run-in with the law. Many spent years in prison. It's the restaurant, it's the school, it's the institute.
Yeah.
Chrostowski wants to redirect their lives with a restaurant boot camp, a 6-month program that provides housing, a library, donated clothes, even a small farm.
This is a brute, so it's going to have very, very little sugar.
Students take classes on a wide range of topics, including the art of champagne tasting and opening.
Twist the cork one way, the bottle the other way. There you go.
Should I have two after the one I'm playing?
The days are long, noon until midnight, and only 30% of students make it through. When you talk to someone either in prison or just out of prison and you tell them that you want to train them to become a French chef, what's the usual reaction?
I think it's twofold. I think it's one, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Can't say that on TV.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. And the other thing is, if you give me sand, I'll drink it. Just give me an opportunity, I'll take it. Because that opportunity hasn't been there in the past.
What's your goal long term?
Change the face of reentry.
Change the face of reentry.
Change the face of reentry. Change that perception of someone coming out of prison or jail or a bad, hard time or addiction.
You're not a lost soul, you're redeemable.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Not only redeemable, you can redeem and kick some ass too. So now we get into something a little bit more intimate. That's fish, right? I mean, it's me of all the things to cook. I have two passions of cooking. I mean, cooking in general, but risotto and fish.
Chrostowski also trains those still doing time inside 13 Ohio prisons, including here at Grafton Correctional Institution. These men will be out soon, and no one wants them to reoffend.
I mean, I'm right there on the bone, man. You guys did a great job.
Chrostowski says they need skills. The class we watched is full of hardcore convicts.
You're too forceful. If you got to push that hard, you're cutting through bone.
Sentences for murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, and more.
Let's find the sharpest blade, steal it, and we'll go to town.
Today, they're learning to fillet salmon. You've got guys who have been convicted of some pretty horrendous crimes with large, very sharp knives. Does that concern you at all?
Not a bit. This is the most at peace I feel all week. It's really the safest place that you could ever be.
Inside a prison with inmates with sharp knives is the safest place you can be.
They're only 12 inches.
I'm serious.
And when I'm here, when I'm with someone who's, focused and dedicated in life to culinary arts, to improving, to fulfilling potential, there's no greater space to be in with another human being.
Daryl Lempek is nearing the end of a decade-long sentence for drug trafficking and weapons charges.
You know what they say, right? You get out what you put in. So I guess you put in the work, you reap the reward.
Are you ready to put in the work in the right way?
For sure. For sure. I've had enough. Definitely had enough. 9 years. It's enough. I can walk the straight and narrow. I can do the right thing.
And you think these classes help you get there?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Gives me a purpose.
Chrostowski's nonprofit program is funded by his main restaurants and private donations. He says he won't take any government money. What do you want people to take from the idea of Edwin's?
Well, there's hope. This thing is supported by like 7-year-olds who've given me like $4 their allowance, $4 in a Ziploc bag of coin. And the next day it's a $500,000 check. So from the very least of us to the very most of us, it works. And without that, it doesn't work. So the hero here is a community of people, staffing this, the community of people supporting it.
7-year-old.
Pretty sweet.
You can't say that on TV.
But it is sweet.
It is sweet, yes.
7 years old.
Yes,
she
it is.
believes that someone deserves a second chance, right?
So a couple updates here. First, that Brandon won the Silver Plate Award, which we congratulate him on. Well deserved. Also, he's now running, during the coronavirus, he's running a virtual program so people can keep learning because they're not showing up in the restaurant if they want to keep learning about food and the process. And
so important to give people a purpose, as he said, another opportunity. And you think about a time like this, even more important, you don't want to see a business like this not be able to continue. And it's in an industry that obviously is so hard hit.
Two amazing quotes from Brandon. One was in the piece there about opportunity.
Right.
If you give me sand, I'll drink it, because that opportunity wasn't there before. The other one that he's saying now is, when you have time, which so many people do, when you have time, you have dreams.
Okay, Jill, can you perhaps tell a little bit about your experience with employing the formerly incarcerated individuals?
Thanks so much for having me as part of this panel. I represent Towards Employment. So we are a 40-plus-year-old community-based workforce development organization. So we do hire individuals with backgrounds who are graduates of our program, but our main purpose is actually to prepare individuals for success in your workplaces. So we work to help prepare people for jobs and help businesses find talent. And we work with individuals who may need some extra help in getting there. And about, in any given year, 50% to 2/3 of the people we serve do have a criminal background. And the way in which we, the framework that we use to help prepare people for jobs in your companies is what we call a career pathway approach. So first of all, we want to understand what your needs are as businesses and take that information to inform the training programs that we provide. Then we meet people where they're at and understanding what challenges they have and work to bring resources to help them address those challenges, whether that is with regard to life stability, it may be housing, it may be a history of substance abuse, someone who has recently been released from incarceration, has a whole slew of challenges in terms of re-entering and settling back into their community. And then thinking about the skills that they need to do the job, the literacy level, digital literacy, credentialing, and work experience, what goes on their resume, and then preparing them for the job search itself. So interviewing and job search, and especially again in the time of COVID, with all of the remote new tools that are needed to do this successfully remotely. And then once connected to a job, a very important component is to be able to provide continued support after placement. So for up to a year after placement, at least, having a coach there to be able to support an individual to be successful. And so that is settling into the job, but also not just focusing on sort of where they are today, but really keeping an eye on long-term success and advancement, and how to be able to turn what may be this first step in a career pathway to be able to advance and ensure that someone is getting to a living wage job. So that support, I think, as you may be contemplating, thinking, if you've already worked and hired people with criminal justice involvement, or you're thinking about setting up or doing so, partnering with community agencies to work with on screening, on training that is responsive to your needs, and on that coaching post-placement to ensure success. That the person can be successful in your business. Up there.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're going to try this. We're going to welcome questions from the audience. And so people in the audience should submit their questions by chat, and we'll come to them in a little bit. But I'll kick this off with a couple of sort of global questions, and maybe each of you can speak briefly to them. Starting with Barbara, then Brandon, then Jill, and then Frank. And my first question would be, how would an employer...
Hey Ben, so Brandon only gets introduced by video now? Is that big shot now? You don't even speak anymore? You just let the
He's coming around now. He's going to be coming around, but we did have him by video. Frank, when you have a video like that, you'll have to demand, or he didn't demand, he suggested that we might show it. I thought the video was great.
Hey, Frank, I usually have someone log in for me too. It's great.
Yeah. My first, he can
I
have
needed
coffee,
that.
yeah, while the video plays. My first question for our panelists is, how would an employer find, people with a record to possibly employ? How do you, as employers, how do you find these people, or how would you recommend that an employer go about finding these people to add to their workforce?
Yeah, so I can answer that for Relink Medical. The way we do that, we have a couple of not-for-profit partners that work in the prisons with individuals to help prepare them for release. We have True Freedom Ministers we work with, and also Broken Chains, and they provide the pipeline for us. So these are men and women that they've spent, in many cases, years with. They've gotten to know. They're individuals that are truly looking for that second chance and working really hard, and they refer them to us, and then they go through a pretty vigorous interview process here to be selected. But that is a process that we've used, and as I mentioned earlier, so far it's been really successful. The individuals they've recommended to us have been top notch, and then there's been a couple that have fallen out in the interview process, but by and large that's been very successful for us and a fruitful pipeline.
Okay, Brandon?
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you find the people to work for you?
No, I heard the question. I just couldn't unmute. So it's a lot. There's a lot of different factors to do that. At first, it was going to every shelter, courtroom. It was hitting the churches and just talking about this program that was available. At this point now, I mean, you see like the CBS piece, or it could be a radio spot, or it could be anything that disseminates the message via media. People family call. They'll say, "Hey, I have a son, I have a daughter," and they'll make the connection. Our prison program has expanded, so we have some coming from right from release to Edwin's. But our strongest of all these pipelines of connecting to us is really the graduates themselves. So we have a pretty strong alumni network, a couple of hundred now, and they'll tell a friend or a family member. That's got to be the strongest real life example and connection that we have to getting men and women through our program and through our program. But we're getting people from Texas, from Minnesota, Florida. They're coming from all over the United States because it's a real thing, and the message is spreading.
Okay, perfect. Jill?
So as we recruit into our program and then provide, connect the individuals coming through our program to employers, so we would invite employers to reach out to us or other organizations like us that work to help prepare people for jobs who are have this lived experience. So we like Brandon recruit in directly from probation, parole, halfway houses, but also just generally in the public. So we would serve someone who was recently released, but also someone who has in criminal justice involvement or conviction from the past that has continued to hold them back from their true potential. I would encourage, again, depending on where you are, I know this is a group that isn't just in Cuyahoga County, but to look for organizations to partner with who is doing the kind of recruitment that Brandon just talked about, but then already is working on doing some of the preparation and support, and then can link you to those who are most interested, again, in the different pathways. So a program that, for example, we have programs that specifically focus on preparing people for entry-level manufacturing jobs, or getting the CDL for truck driving, or construction. So there could be programs that specifically prepare people with the skills or provide credentials that would be the best match for you. And then again, a partner in terms of providing some extra support So you look at the skills that match, but then those extra supports that could help someone who may have some extra, some challenges related to either being recently released, or that the background has been a problem in the past in terms of getting hired. Okay,
thank you. Frank, do you have ideas about how an employer would find individuals possibly to hire?
Yeah, and I think they get all of the previous speakers gave great examples of how to recruit individuals, and particularly for programs. But when we talk about employers, I think one of the key things is how do you, as an employer, communicate that you are providing opportunities for all? How do you communicate that? How do you help an employee or a prospective employee be able to transcend the label? Because if I'm an employer out there and manufacturing was brought up, Elyria is full of manufacturers. How do you just communicate that, hey, we do not discriminate based on your record? And how do you make sure you communicate that message that we're a company that provides opportunity for all despite their background? I think that's the number one thing, in my opinion, that needs to be promoted by local employers, is that they are an opportunity for all employer. And I think people will recognize that when they're looking for employment, and then they'll take them up on the offer. But I think, one of the key things I want to make sure we're conscious of is people don't want that label on them forever. They want to just be able to be free from the label to say, hey, just treat me like I can work just as hard as the person next to me. I'm just as good as the person next to me. So don't label me even once you hire me. That's our project here in the shop. Just let me show up and be great like I can be.
Hey, Ben, can I add on to that? Because I think that's
ahead.
a really great point, Mayor Whitfield. And I know our founder, Mr. Dalton, has a lot of sayings, but one of his sayings is, we want to get to the point where no one says that people say, what do you do? Not what did you do? What do you do now? What is your career? And being able to shake that identity. And I think that's really important. And I think one of the other things that the leadership here at the foundation and Reeling Medical do is even just to share our stories, because there is some stigma that needs to be addressed and broken down about hiring formerly incarcerated individuals. I think there's some things that go through people's minds that we have found not to be true. And I know we saw in Brandon's video, did he feel safe? And obviously the answer was yes, he feels safe. And I feel I speak for the employees here, that's the same thing. I think there's stereotypes that can create some hindrances for people to consider hiring formerly incarcerated individuals. But I know if Mr. Dalton was here right now, he would say that, one, if you came into the factory area here, you would not be able to identify which of the ones were formerly incarcerated and which ones were not. And truth be told, the employees that we have that are formerly incarcerated are the best employees. There's a level of gratitude. There's a level of hard work, the lack of entitlement. I mean, it's really remarkable. And so I think being able to start spreading that word and breaking down some of those stereotypes for employers that actually have experience is really important.
If I could, I would completely agree with that peer-to-peer testimonials are really, really important. And, I think that there's a lot of tools and resources, especially for larger companies that with regard to fair hiring practices, and really being able to look at each individual as an individual and see them for, I think I love that phrase, but seeing them for who they are today, what they have to offer, and it's sort of along with that, the idea of ban the box, but really being able to understand who somebody is today and what they have to offer. And then you take a look at the background and, if there are considerations related to that, how do you how might you be able to address that, but really to be able to see each individual for what they are today and what they have to offer. And there, I think I sent it to Ben. If those of you aren't familiar with SHRM, has a toolkit actually with many testimonials, tools, things to get you started on building a fair hiring policy. if that's of interest to others. And I think afterwards we can maybe put the link up there to if people are looking for guidance on policies and other testimonials.
I have one more question that I'll pass to all of you, and then we're starting to get questions from the audience, so we'll turn to them next. But my next question is, and we can go from Barbara to Brandon to Jill to Frank again. How does one make this work? Obviously, there should be some structure and support in order to make this work. So how is it different, or maybe it isn't different, hiring? And let's keep in mind that I suppose that formerly incarcerated individuals, you can be incarcerated for all kinds of reasons, or maybe nothing at all. But how do employers, make this work, hiring, sometimes formerly incarcerated individuals who were incarcerated for something serious? Okay, Barbara, you start, and then Brandon, Jill, and Frank, and then we have starting to have questions from the field.
Sure. I think my answer to that is kind of simple, and it's just good management practices. It doesn't have to be anything really, quite honestly, that special, of having things like accountability, structure, setting up clear expectations from the beginning. I know the management team here is really clear. There's rules and there's consequences for breaking the rules, and they just are very consistent with enforcing those rules. And everybody knows that it's not going to be a game. And so understanding that from the very beginning is very helpful. It's clearly communicated. All employees are treated the same, no matter what your background is. The bar is the same for everybody. And I think that gives a sense of, just fairness and peace and calm in the workplace. I think that's really good. And I think these are just, these are good management practices regardless, right, of how to treat your team. And so I think that is what's being done here. And I think that's what's showing to be successful.
Okay, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, these are like people from out of like this world, right? This is aliens we're talking about. These are human beings like everyone else. And there's nothing different that we do. I mean, to treat one human differently from the next because their perspective's different. There's nothing different. Like Barbara said, it's your management approach. So everyone's got a different management style, and I think everyone's management style would work with a human being that's receptive. That's the key word. One thing that there's two things that I've always done. One, I've always prized that perspective of someone with incarceration. I think there's a known self when you're dealing in that element. Someone who knows who they are. Maybe what their triggers are. So I think there's a strong positive when it comes with the perspective of incarceration. The key is wrapping the skill set of your business around that, or getting someone into the culture of your business. And that just goes, that's case by case, manager by manager.
Okay. Jill?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what others have said. I guess the only thing I might add is that somebody recently coming out of incarceration, depending on how long they've spent, there's a certain behaviors that help you sort of manage through that experience, and translating that sometimes into the workplace. Just understanding sort of where somebody's coming from can inform, I think, everybody. Using good management practices, I think that can address that. But I think understanding a bit what the environment is like in incarceration can help managers then figure out the best way to encourage, provide feedback, motivate, et cetera. So doing a little bit of homework on that and understanding that sometimes can be very helpful. And one other thing I might mention is, especially those recently released, if you're on probation, oftentimes are required to meet with probation officers. And that system is not aligned to support employment, unfortunately. Very often they have inflexible schedules and will require people to meet, during hours, irrespective of what somebody's shift is. And that can be a barrier. And that's where really seeing employers who are committed to this, figuring out how to make sure that can work, that's not a reason for not providing somebody who could bring real value to your organization and be of great value to themselves because of that. So I think it's really being aware of some of these things and then figuring out not to make exceptions, but how you can create the most, supportive environment for success for everybody.
Okay, perfect. Frank?
Yeah, so I'll speak later on about the kind of knowing each individual story and how important that is just as a manager in general, even if you're interviewing someone, to know the individual story. But I'll speak on this question about, in particular, as opposed to what should people do, what they shouldn't do, and what I've seen what employers do. One is I've seen employers think that people who have backgrounds, they make them work harder, almost as if they feel like they have to doubly earn the opportunity. That, hey, I'm giving you a chance, so I don't want to hear any complaints from you. I'm going to treat you any kind of way I want to, because you should be thankful for the opportunity. The other thing I think they shouldn't do is pay them less. I've spoken with employers and they say, hey, our wages are low because a lot of these guys just got out and they're just happy for the opportunity. So they use an excuse of someone's background to treat the employees worse, work them harder, pay them less. And I think that's not fair either. So I think one of the things that they should do is make sure that they're creating a good workplace environment for everyone. And in particular, make sure that they are challenging any bias that they may have in their management of how they may now treat this person because of their awareness of their background. And I've seen that play out a number of times.
Okay, great. Now what we're going to do, Eric's got at least one question from the audience, and I encourage the audience now to start submitting more questions. And Eric is going to take those questions and give them to one or more members of the audience. Eric?
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So my friend Amy Vay asked this question. I live in Cleveland Heights and have been to Edwin's frequently. Brandon and his staff do a great job. Brandon, do you have a pipeline of local restaurants to take your graduates, and how has the virus affected your grads?
Yeah, that's from Amy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Amy, good question. Thank you. So yes, we do have a pipeline, and there's, pre-pandemic, there's probably over 45 jobs that we're waiting to hire. And, at this point, we're still in the dozens, but nothing to where we were pre-pandemic. This industry is always, right now, anytime, there's always a need in our industry for good, talented people who know how to make it happen in this business. It's a tough business, and if you're good and passionate and really can manage individuals, you're more than likely to get hired. How the virus has affected the grads, it's all sorts of ways, right? Recently we've had these orders and suggested orders and whatnot put on people because of COVID. But we have to keep moving in terms of jobs and stability. That's why we're opening a restaurant tonight, a brand new restaurant in the middle of pandemic. It sounds like a bad joke, right? But it's true. The demand for our program has increased, and our dining room has been cut in half. And we've done so far so good during this whole pandemic in terms of business. And it's just about fighting for people who need more. And that's the whole idea behind another restaurant space. So I don't think restaurants are going anywhere. I think a lot of them will close, but the cream will rise to the top, and people that want to be in this business will continue to work hard and contribute. And there are opportunities out there right now for that. Heinen's is calls, just not calls, emails, probably twice a month, can you send someone down? Can we hire, et cetera, et cetera. What this pandemic has also brought about is people who really aren't going to work, right, or by choice. And when you have one of our graduates who's hungry to succeed in the business world, they're right there at the front lines, getting that position. One of our, just a short story about one of our graduates who he did 20 years straight. He just graduated our program 3 weeks ago and got an HR position and has already got a promotion. So it's like yes, it's a pandemic, but you know, you're committed and you've got a skill set, but most importantly, you have the esteem to fulfill that skill set. I think is a big word we underestimate, is just the esteem to use our skill. Once you have that, you're getting employed.
Thank you, Brandon. Melanie, you got a question? You want to go ahead and ask that?
Sure. I'm sure you're not obligated to let coworkers know of anybody's background, but do you ever run into a situation, or how do you, if it comes up, help coworkers feel? I'm sure that there's bias from the hiring directors, and there might be bias too with coworkers. Do you have any suggestions for how to, if it does come up, build that team and break through some of that?
I can just say a few words about. So we're working right now with Manufacturing Sector Partnership in Cuyahoga County on a pipeline specifically of individuals they identified as an untapped talent pool, individuals with criminal backgrounds, and so developing a program to prepare people for jobs at this set of employers. And in doing so, identified both education for the owners as well as the HR folks, and this is, some of these companies are large, so HR people plus direct supervisors, to really again understand when you, all the way from the impact of systemic racism and how people end up with criminal backgrounds and what that could mean, what's on the piece of paper in terms of conviction versus, as Frank mentioned, hearing individual stories and how what that conviction actually looked like in terms of actual behavior and playing out, and really just hearing, understanding people's individualized stories. But that some additional awareness and training and building a culture of inclusion and of recognizing that everyone has value, and telling people not to, one of the challenges is the internet, right? People can Google things, and what you see there is really works against everything that we're just talking about in terms of seeing somebody as an individual, seeing them from this point forward. So it's really, I think, helping throughout your organization, understanding the value that you're bringing by having a policy of hiring formerly incarcerated, and not giving people tools so that they're successful in understanding, and then again reinforcing and working through a culture that again reinforces those basic principles. But so again, I think doing some training and awareness and helping to build that culture, I think, can be very helpful.
Thanks, Joe. Molly Gallagher asks, and I'll let Mayor Whitfield start this one off, that the panel suggested using good and consistent management practices can lead to formerly incarcerated job seekers to be successful in the workforce. Frank, how would you recommend that we reach, teach, and educate employers on the best practices? Workshops, for example?
Yeah, thank you. And I think that we're in a very unique time right now in this kind of racial awareness awakening we're going through as a nation, and that I think more people want to be mindful of any biases they may have, and they want to kind of work through those right now. So I think we're in a unique time where now is the time to start to have these sort of conversations from an HR perspective, from a managerial perspective. Hey, what are some of the implicit biases I may have been taught? What have been some of the narratives I may believe about people that I may need to have challenged? So I think now is definitely the time to not only go through some individual workshop type trainings, but also like work with organizations like Towards Employment, and like have a technical assistance partner right alongside you as you're going on this journey. So it's not like, yep, we went to the 7-hour workshop, we're good, let's roll. Like that doesn't cut it. It's a continuous, and as Jill mentioned, there'll be certain dynamics that or certain accommodations that you need to think about as an employer, and that's going to take policy revisions. That's going to take, from a city standpoint, that may take some statutory and legislative changes that need to happen in order to accommodate. So I don't think it's a one and done workshop and then it's accomplished. I think it'd be great if if you want to go on this journey to work with an organization like Towards Employment or a group that really specializes in equal opportunity for all and helping organizations accomplish that, and then just be in it for the long ride, really believe that this is a value add. I think Jill mentioned earlier that, there's a conversation right now about the talent gap that exists. And so many employers in Northeast Ohio are saying, I can't find the talent. I can't find the talent. And you got these hundreds of people who are begging for opportunity. But because of this one thing, this one piece that they fill out on the application, they're taken out from the opportunity. So to really buy into, hey, in order to succeed as a region, as a business, I have to leave that mindset behind, that just because they check this box, they shouldn't get the opportunity. And I think it'll be better for our region overall.
Thanks, Frank. Gino asks, and I'll put this to the group, but maybe more specifically to Brandon, but he asks, how much effort do employers or should employers put toward managing the time that these formerly incarcerated employees spend outside the work setting?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question. How much time should a manager of a job?
I guess, how much effort should an employer put into being concerned with or helping manage the time that these employees spend outside their employment?
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understand the question correctly. It's basically a business saying, hey, what's someone doing when they're not on the clock?
Yeah, I guess.
And how do you work? So it's an interesting question. It's a very good point, because that's something we're focused on too. I just believe in this concept of a more powerful yes, right? And then if you can create this more powerful yes, if you can create this track to ride on that kind of resists the temptation around you, and we're all surrounded by temptation. This isn't exclusive just to people who are returning home from prison. I think you're going to find that the person that you're concerned with, whoever that person is going to make the right decision when that time comes. We create a more powerful yes by a string of like really quick wins. We create a more powerful yes by the inclusive culture we have. And we create a more powerful yes by giving people the challenge to do something they thought was not possible, and then they in fact achieve it. So I really think that I'm less concerned with what I can't control, and just really focusing on what I can control. Great job opportunity, surrounded by people who care and are not looking at someone's past, but rather someone's future. I can control that. I can create people in positions and look for that perspective, so that culture is there, and then just challenging to make sure someone's achieving their goal, which is another important part of this. This is all about management. Barbara said it first. It's about management. This is, say you're in a, you run a gas station and you hire somebody, and you know who they are, and you find out what their goals are, and then you kind of train them to get to the next best step to achieve their goal. You're going to find a stronger connection with that person, and consequently a better employee. Really, as a manager, it takes the hard work, and that's to me the key that we're continuing to try to train with. We have a management training program at Edwin's as well. That gives the opportunity for a graduate to run each of our businesses for 4 months, and they get paid well to do it. If we can get people in management positions with a perspective of incarceration, chances are they're going to hire someone with the same background, or create an inclusive culture that is positive for someone coming out of prison. I think this all boils down to whoever's running, owning, or operating a business, to put the right pieces and parts in place so that this concept can flourish. It's going to be really hard just to do a one-off in the resistant culture, a work culture, and it's just tough. So I see what you're saying. I understand what your concerns are by the question. I just think that we can create such a better workplace or a better world for someone that's not even a concern, because the workplace is the best place.
I'll add on to that. I think that was great, Brandon, what you said of just creating that positive work experience that makes people want that and value it, you wouldn't want to risk it. So the temptation, while still there, is less. I would just add on that there are all the examples that we know so well. And again, we do get to know our employees at a deep level. And there are, as Mayor Whitfield said, there are a lot of obstacles for people when they have that felony conviction on their record that they have to overcome, including finding housing. And sometimes they find housing and then it gets lost because the landlord wasn't maybe the exceptional thing. So these are real things that your employees are dealing with. And they will sometimes come to you with those issues. And I think in our case, what we've done is we have our partners that we refer to that are there to help catch them. So we know that we can call True Freedom Ministries, who has a lot of different housing options when our employee needs it. So we utilize the community to help meet those real needs as they come up. And as I'm learning today about Towards Employment, I'm sure that you probably have some of those type of things as well. As you've mentioned, you walk alongside them for a year, because as these things come up, they are real, and they do. If you lose your housing, and we do have a good example of that, where someone had found housing, was doing great, there was a violent crime in the neighborhood that got something shot up, they had to then look for something else. I mean, just these things that happen that you're just like, wow, did that really just happen? I'm so sorry. But then being able to help them overcome that, because they do want to come to work and be there on time, but sometimes these things come up. And so just referring them on is what we do with our partners.
B. Tobakash asks if there's a referral group to join, a group that will pre-screen and refer to these candidates to employers.
I think that there are a lot of opportunities for that, depending on where you are, to seek out community partners that do exactly that. So obviously, Brandon's program is doing that in the culinary field. So True North Ministries, Towards Employment, so they're community partners, again, that are recruiting and preparing and working with individuals with this experience. And then some are focused on certain industries and others are more general. So I would encourage connecting to the Workforce Development Board and asking some questions there. Or, I mean, if you, I'd be happy if you wanted to share where you're from, where your talent pool needs to come from, any context that I may have, in the area that do this work. But I would, encourage to explore sort of the community partners in your, catchment area, and start some conversations. And again, there may be some very tailored initiatives underway that are a good fit, or you may be able to start a conversation and get something going. You may, if you have similar needs to other employers in your area, that's also a great way to work, because then it's not a one-off opportunity. You can have 2, 3, 4, 10 spots open that need a similar skill set, and that can then actually trigger some more customized programming to meet your needs. So there's a lot of opportunity to partner and support, both on the skill building side, and then also, as Barbara mentioned, sort of walking alongside to help address some of these other challenges. I did want to mention that some of these challenges around housing and childcare, transportation, are really are not exclusively tied to somebody's relationship to the criminal justice system, but really are, comes from just having limited resources generally. So, so some of entry-level jobs that don't pay very much, people have, the statistic, how many people have, can't handle a $400, emergency, are really living on the edge, so that any small thing can set off a chain of events in their personal life that could impact their performance on the job. And it's not unique to those with criminal backgrounds. So, I think thinking more generally, the challenges are similar probably to if you're working with an entry-level workforce to others in that same situation.
Maybe one last question before we kind of let the panel wrap up. This question can go to anybody. Essentially, how do we address the barriers? And they're talking about probation officer meetings, and for my clients, it's still a Maris, it's meeting with a sponsor or needing a 12-step meeting, etc. How do we deal with those barriers to entry as an employer?
I think it's a very good question, and rather than looking at it as a barrier, as a negative, I'm really looking at this as a positive way to get to understand not only that person but the strange world we live in, right? I mean, to me, so when you say mention those things, that's just natural, right? That could be someone in my family that it's got those barriers, or it could be someone in the workplace that has those barriers. That's not uncommon. It's like I don't know, maybe it's like someone having a bad hair day. It's like these things happen. It's these are natural things, and it's so natural, and it doesn't really move the needle for me or deter me from getting over or getting through the issue at hand. I would just encourage us to say, get to know us, right? Get to know us, get to know someone, and you'll find that barrier is not unlike anything else, like picking a kid up from hockey practice or something, right? And you just have to understand it's a lifestyle that they have to live, and there's ways around it. Nowadays, I mean, what a great thing we have with this Zoom. I mean, a lot of our guys and girls are on doing their probation meetings via Zoom, and it's working out. And I would just say that it's not such a barrier in a negative way. It's such a positive way to get to know somebody when they're having or going through something that's difficult. And wow, what a way to build a relationship when you can say, hey, it's okay. I understand. I have commitments too. So it's another commitment in someone's life that we have to understand and work with.
Ben, do you have time for one more? Or?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add to that real quick. One thing I think employers can do that I think is really important is using their voice, in particular towards the criminal justice system, to make sure that and I say that for a number of reasons. One, because a lot of times individuals who have a criminal background or have been incarcerated, oftentimes they've potentially hurt people in their lives. So sometimes they're on an island, they're by themselves. They are already in isolation, and that sometimes puts them in a vulnerable position to be taken advantage of by a lot of people. And as I mentioned earlier about people working them harder, paying them less, also from the criminal justice standpoint, sometimes, I'll say sometimes, the professionals who are their, probation department, et cetera, are harder on them that isn't realistic. They're so hard on them that, because again, they feel like nobody's going to advocate for them, nobody's defend them. Hey, you were late 5 minutes, you're going back in. Case closed, I'm moving on. I got next one I got to get to, because they feel like there's no consequences for doing that. So for that employer to step up and be able to say, hey, this is my employee, what do you need from them? How can I, and really fighting for them, I think is one key bit, because I think the system needs to be held accountable as well. The justice system needs to be held accountable on how we treat individuals as well. So I think that's one way that employers can use their voice to make a difference.
Yeah, let me make a suggestion now. And I appreciate our speakers. I think this has been a wonderful panel, and hopefully it'll have wide viewing long after we're finished with it today. But I'd like to go through our four panelists again, Barbara, Brandon, Jill, and Frank, and have you each leave us with a final few thoughts about the opportunity that's available to us to do good and to do well, I suppose, to do well by doing good. And I'd like to go through the group and have you share a few thoughts. And then we can't have a round of applause, that's not going to work. But then we're going to change gears, and we're going to turn this over to Eric again, who's going to allow those of us who are still here to network briefly amongst ourselves before we reach 9 o'clock, the witching hour, and go about our day. So, Barbara, do you want to start with some closing observations?
Sure. First of all, I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity. We're happy to be here and share the experiences we've had. And I guess just my takeaway message, I think, is just a summary of wanting to be that voice and encouraging other employers, if they're not already hiring, second chance employees, to consider doing it. If there's any way that if there's anyone that wants to talk to someone, get some real details of our stories and our processes, we are more than happy to do that. because I think to a T, everyone here that's been involved with leading this program would say it's a huge win, both for the individuals that participate, but it's also a win for the business. It's been wonderful. So we would just encourage people, if they're interested and have any questions, we'd be happy to help in any way, to encourage more and more people to offer these opportunities.
Okay, Brandon?
Yeah, just say, make it happen, right? I mean, there's so many ways to make it happen. Getting to know us, simply, if there's a question on your application that says, hey, have you been convicted? I mean, ask about it and why, and it might be the best redemption story you've ever heard. So, get to know us. And when I say make it happen, just because you can't hire, maybe someone here works for an FDIC insured bank or something. You can ask others, in your circle how they're hiring. Make this more of a prominent issue in our world, and say, hey, it's something that I've heard is really nice, and I do it myself. And then how do you hire? And if you're an owner and you're saying, well, listen, I can't because of restriction, X, Y, and Z. Well, look at your cottage industries and like how you're purchasing, who are you purchasing from, or how you go about running your business, and are you supporting maybe a business that makes pens that's a group of people who are formerly incarcerated. And the point is, you there's no excuse why you can't inject this into your lifestyle. You can just use your voice at the very lowest level, and everyone's got one. If not, sign language. We have a pen. I mean, so there's no excuse how you can't introduce it into someone's world. And at the very highest level, my goodness, I mean, you could hire someone and change a whole family, and that's what it's about. Just make it happen and do something, right? Doing nothing is bad.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Jill.
Yes, ditto. So well said, everybody. I guess I would just conclude with just an example of the talent that is there for you. So the story of somebody named Chris came through, and he was underemployed because of his criminal background, working a $9.50 an hour job, was able to connect and to get a CNC credential, went to $12.50, continued to advance, and change, companies, and is now earning over $25 an hour. And the transformation that makes, but also to recognize that he was laboring at a $9.15 hour, not living to its full potential, and not offering that talent to an employer in an area in demand that did not have this great employee. So I guess that's just an example of why you should do what Brandon and Barbara were just saying.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then Frank. Now, Frank, I have to apologize because you've always been last, and it's hardest to be last because a lot of the good ideas have already been taken. But do you want to leave us with a final thought?
Yeah. Here I am sitting here as the first African-American elected mayor in Lorain County. I'm 33 years old. I have my MBA from the great Case Western Reserve University. Graduated from Cleveland State before that. I have a wife, 3 daughters. At 18, I was arrested 3 times at the age of 18. And had that not been a barrier in my life, just thinking about my journey, I'm lucky that I'm able to still do the work that I've been able to do. But throughout every step of this journey, there's been a barrier I've had to overcome each time. I've always had to give an answer for the stupid 18-year-old and what they were doing. And imagine, and I think about Brandon as well, imagine Brandon and I in prison right now, based on our circumstance. I've helped thousands of people, thousands of kids, thousands of seniors just throughout my journey. And to think about, we wouldn't be on this panel right now without a lucky break. And I think as a society, we cannot function off of lucky breaks. And America has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. And so if we're gonna make decisions to say, hey, if you check this box, no opportunity, we're robbing ourselves of what a great country we can have. And I think Brandon and myself are a testament to that. So appreciate it.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you to our panelists, and greatly appreciated. Happy holidays. And Eric, I turn it over to you.